Morning. Is this is it on? So I want to point out right away here that I think we have like a forbidden row at the common place. Like this front row. No, I don't spit. All right, but nobody ever sits in the front row. I don't know if people are just afraid, but it's here. So instead of putting more chairs in the back, I knew these guys. Now they're oh jeez, goodness. These guys are going to make funny faces at me the entire time, which I don't expect anything less from them. Before I go any further or say anything stupid, I'm going to pray. Daddy God, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for this church. Lord, right now, I pray that you shut me up. I pray that you silence me, and I pray that you speak through me, Lord, that only your words come out of my mouth and not my own. Lord, clear my head and fill it only with your message. I pray that we're able to hear from you today, we're able to see you, and that through this, that we're able to become closer to you and become more like Jesus. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So as Tim said, Josh is not here this morning. He is elsewhere. It's his anniversary, I think, in a couple days or whatever, so him and Sarah are doing something for that. But I'm here, I'm Luke, the youth leader, or one of the youth leaders, and I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really excited to see everybody. It makes me happy to see everybody here. So hopefully I can give us a good message. Last week, Pastor Josh started off a new series that we're going through. That new series is called The Story of Joseph, Not a Victim. So we're going to look at Joseph's life. And he's a very, very interesting person in the Bible. And he's one of the only few characters that we get like a huge span of his life. We get like whenever he's a teenager, whenever he's like in his 20s, and whenever he's older and adult. And that usually doesn't happen in the Bible. We usually get like a snapshot of someone's life. But with Joseph, we get this large picture of who he is and what all he did, and the person that he was, and the person that he became. So we're specifically going to look at like his life and how we apply it to our lives today. So in that introduction of Joseph, we learned some things about Joseph whenever he was a young man, whenever he was like a teenager maybe. We learned that he was young and arrogant, but he was also very gifted. He was able to interpret dreams. People would have dreams and he could tell what those dreams meant. And he had some of his own dreams and he knew what those dreams meant, but he didn't always interpret them in a graceful manner. For example, he had a dream and interpreted that his brothers and his father would bow down to him. And as a teenager, telling your older brothers and your dad that you're one day going to bow down to me, that didn't come across too well for his dad and his brothers. Joseph was a favorite. He was the son of Jacob's favorite wife, therefore his favorite son. So he was arrogant, he was the favorite, he had a kind of messed up family. He had 4 mothers. Like I said, he was the son of the favorite mother. And he also had a bunch of brothers that did not like him. He had 11 or so brothers that just hated his guts. And they probably hated him because he was arrogant, he was gifted, but didn't use his gifts well. And he also had this fancy favorite son colored jacket coat thing that was all kinds of colors and it was really expensive and fancy. He was the only one that had that. His dad gave it specifically to him to show like, hey, you're my favorite. And he wore that all the time. And in that, being the favorite, he found his identity. And that's where he got into a lot of trouble. And that's kind of where we're going to pick up the story today. So today I'm going to be speaking on Genesis 37, 12 through 36. And before we get into that story, I think we need to remember something. And this is kind of the way I like to read the Bible, especially the Old Testament. First of all, how many people have heard the story of Joseph in general? Just go ahead, show of hands. So yeah, everybody has heard this story. And I think we probably learned it like when we were really little, like our little kids upstairs are probably learning it. And I think what happens sometimes is we get numb to these stories and they become dull. We kind of just gloss over them and read them. Oh, I know the story, and kind of skim through it. But we need to remember that Joseph was a real person, and these were real situations, these were real conversations, and that this stuff actually happened, and this stuff is still applicable to what we go through today. So I'm going to kind of tell a story about this passage, and if you want to read along, you'll notice that I'll be covering the major points, but I'm going to be filling in some of the things I think Joseph was thinking, and Jacob was thinking, and some of the things that his brothers were probably saying and thinking. Because, there's no way that these were like all the quotes from all of his brothers, and that this day was in the span of like a few paragraphs. So I think a lot more was going on in this situation than what we're reading. So we'll start in verse 12, and I'll pretty much take us almost to the end of it. So this one day, Joseph's brothers were out. They were out with their flock of sheep. They're shepherding the family flock of sheep, and for some reason, Joseph wasn't pulling his weight, and he was just sitting around at home. We're not really told why. He might have just went, I don't want to take care of the sheep today, or he was lazy, or because he was a favorite, Jacob said, hey, you don't have to go. But then Jacob says, you know what, I probably should send my son. He says to Joseph, son, go make sure your brothers are okay. Go make sure they're not getting into any trouble. Go find them somewhere in this place called Shechem. So Joseph says, okay. He gets up to go find his brothers. Naturally, he throws on his fancy, special favorite son jacket because, why not? Let's just show everybody I'm the favorite. And also, probably that way he can be seen from a distance, because that's always good. So Joseph sets out to find his brothers in Shechem. And he gets to Shechem, and he can't find his brothers. And at this point in time, you think, all right, can't find my brothers, I'm just going to turn back, go home, and go tell Dad I couldn't find them. That's not what Joseph does. And actually, something kind of strange happens, and I'm kind of confused about this part, because Joseph just asks some random dude where his brothers are, and the guy knows. And I don't understand why the writer of Genesis put that in there. So if you know, tell me afterwards. But I think it's just kind of funny, just like some random wandering dude tells Joseph where his brothers are. Like, we could have gone on with the story, we could have just said Joseph found his brothers, but this random wandering dude gets this cameo. I don't know, maybe he was like a friend of the writer of Genesis or something. He's like, hey, look at me. Anyway, but so this random wandering dude tells Joseph where his brothers are, and Joseph starts to get close to him. So let's kind of switch gears here, and now we're going to talk about what the brothers were probably thinking at this point in time. So I can only assume that while Joseph was looking for his brothers, the brothers are probably talking about Joseph. They're probably fuming in their discussions about him. They're probably saying things like, can you believe Joseph? Can you believe this kid? Okay, who does he think he is? Saying that we're going to bow down to him. Come on, man. He's just a little kid. We're not going to bow down to him. He should bow down to us. I mean, what a jerk. He even told Dad that Dad is going to bow down to him. Like, who says that? I mean, okay, yeah, he tells Dad he's going to bow down to him, but Dad still thinks he's the special one. He's the favorite. Ooh. Okay? And Yahweh forbid that he comes out and helps with the sheep. What the heck? He's just sitting at home. Come on, the nerve of that guy. Don't get me started on that stupid, ugly coat. Okay, we get it. You're the favorite, all right? You don't need to flaunt around all the time with this ugly coat. And one of the other brothers is probably like, man, it's kind of like a cool coat. I mean, it's pretty fancy. And he's like, yeah, but well, it's stupid anyway. Okay, well, speaking of that stupid coat, here he comes. We can see him far away because of that shiny coat. And they probably get more mad at just seeing him coming. And then one brother says, we should get back at him for all of this. We should do something to this jerk. What do you guys think we should do? And they probably discussed a little bit, and somebody's like, we should kill him. And the other brothers are like, I kind of just want to throw some sheep poop on him, but I guess killing him won't work. Yeah, sure, let's kill him. Like, how should we kill him? What should we do? And there's probably one brother, burn him! No, we need that wood for later. And then drown him! We're in the middle of a desert, dude, come on. And then one says, you know what we should do? We should throw him into a cistern. Oh well. That was Josh. That was for Josh. So they decide they're going to throw Joseph into a well. and into this pit, if you will. And they say, this is going to work. We're going to throw them into this pit. This is going to be great. It doesn't have any water in it. That's all right. We'll just sit there in the bottom and die. And then they think, well, what should we tell Dad? And one of the brothers probably says, let's tell him the sheep ate him. And then one of the older brothers, come on, dude. Sheep don't eat people. And he says, yeah, you're right. Well, how about a fierce animal? Yeah, a fierce animal ate him. One of the brothers says, yeah, way to be specific. There's a lot of fierce animals in the desert. And he said, whatever, it's going to work. And then they say, all right, we have this. We have this plan. We're going to kill him. We're going to throw him in the well. And a fierce animal ate him. Great. Then their older brother, Reuben, he's like, I don't know, guys. I don't feel too good about this. Maybe we shouldn't kill him. Let's just throw him down in the pit, and then we'll just leave him there. Really, he wanted to go pick him up later, because he might have been a sensible brother. But so he convinced his brothers, okay, we're just going to throw him in the pit. We're not going to kill him, and then throw him in the pit. We're just going to throw him in the pit. I hope he doesn't die and fall. So they had their plan, and Joseph kept on walking towards them. And I can imagine as he's getting closer, they say, hey, Joseph, hey, we're going to kill you. And Joseph has no idea the amount of hate his brothers have for him in this moment. I mean, he was probably excited to see his brothers. I mean, they are his older brothers, so I think in some way he looked up to them. I mean, he's the youngest, and that's what younger brothers do. They look up to their older brothers. And he had no idea what was in store. He probably expected some hellos, maybe a wisecrack about his coat, but overall, a pleasant experience of seeing his brothers. Never saw them. So let's pick this up in Genesis 37, verses 23 through 24. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore. And they took him and they threw him into a pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. So Joseph found out pretty quickly exactly what was happening. His brother ripped off his jacket, his coat, his most prized possession, and tore it up right in front of him. That alone probably would have crippled him. He loved that coat. It was his identity. But then they picked him up, and they threw him into a dry well. And he was betrayed. His brothers betrayed Joseph. And this is what we're focusing on today. We're focusing on betrayal, specifically the trauma of betrayal. And we're going to talk about how Joseph felt in this betrayal, but more importantly, we're going to see what comes from this betrayal, because I think if we look at it, we can see something really beautiful coming from this. And that's the message that I've been given today, is to talk about that. So let's get back to the bottom of the well. All right, I want us to kind of imagine how Joseph was feeling in this moment. Sure, in his fall, he probably broke a bone or two, but that probably didn't hurt as much knowing that his brothers, his family, his blood had just betrayed him. Like, this wasn't like a group of older brothers hazing their younger brother. This was malice. This was ill intent. This was hate. And he was feeling all that in this moment. I mean, he trusted these guys. They were the ones that were supposed to protect him, to look after him, not to hurt him. And yet, maybe these brothers didn't get along the best, but Joseph never expected this. He never thought that this is the way his brothers felt about him. In that moment, I'm sure Joseph realized that his brothers deeply, truly hated him. And I mean, what about those dreams that he had? I mean, think about it. Joseph had this dream that his brothers were going to bow down to him. This wasn't matching up with that at all. His brothers were supposed to bow down to him, not throw him into a well, not try and kill him. Nothing made any sense in this moment for Joseph. So there Joseph laid, bottom of the well, dreams crushed, hurt not only physically but also mentally beyond all comprehension. The bottom of that well betrayed. And as I look out today, I see people that have felt the same feeling, that have felt the same way that Joseph was feeling. Bottom of a well, betrayed. And I'm sure some of you out there right now betrayed. And we never thought that this betrayal would ever happen to us. We never thought it would happen. And I guess that's what betrayal is. It comes from someone we thought would never hurt us. someone we trust. But there we are, hurt at the bottom of the well. And for Joseph, it came from his brothers. He was betrayed by his brothers. And for us, it comes from everything. Maybe it was our family that betrayed us. Our parents, maybe it was our siblings. Maybe it was our friends, our husbands, our wives that have betrayed us. Maybe you've been betrayed by the church. Maybe you've been betrayed by yourself. You did that one thing that you said you would never do again. And regardless of where this betrayal has come from, it hurts, and it hurts so deeply. And in those wells of betrayal are an overwhelming amount of negative emotions. There's a lot of darkness down at the bottom of the well with us. We feel sad, we feel angry, depressed, we feel helpless. And we start to hear these lies start to creep in. We hear the lies that you're worthless, that you're not good enough. You deserve to be here. You deserve this betrayal. And sometimes it gets so bad that we start to believe those lies. And right now I'm going to tell you that you did not deserve to be betrayed. You did not deserve that. No one deserves to be betrayed. Joseph didn't deserve to be betrayed by his brothers, and neither do you, no matter what the circumstances were. And I just want you to know that right now I am wholly and deeply and sincerely sorry that you were betrayed. Like, I wish I could take that away from you. I wish that I could unbetray whatever betrayal happened to you. I wish I could take all those emotions and those feelings and whatever that was, I wish I could take it away from you, and I wish I could wish it away. But unfortunately, that's not how that works. We can't just wish those feelings away. I can't take it away from you. However, I want you to know this. I want you to know that there's hope at the bottom of that well. I want you to know that at the bottom of your well, whatever it is, are the beginnings of beauty. I want you to know that God didn't intend for you to be at the bottom of the well, but what He does intend for you is something beautiful. He has intentions to make whatever that betrayal was beautiful. And that's what we're going to focus on today, and how that can happen, and how we can see that, and how we can do that, how we can make this betrayal, something that's so ugly and dirty, something beautiful. And whenever I first read this passage in Genesis, this story of Joseph's betrayal, the Holy Spirit immediately led me to a passage in the New Testament. And if you know anything about me, if you spent any time with me in any kind of church or religious setting, you know that I'm going to Romans. So the youth group kids that are going to be here later are going to probably make fun of me for that, because I always reference Romans. But anyway, we're going to look at Romans chapter 8, specifically verses 27 through 30. So Romans chapter 8, 27 through 30. And he who searches heart knows what is in the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. For those whom He foreknew, He also predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son, in order that He might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those whom He predestined, He also called, and those whom He called, He also justified, and those whom He justified, He also glorified. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're probably thinking, like, Luke, this doesn't make any sense. Okay? What does Joseph being betrayed, something that happened way in the Old Testament, have anything to do with the image of Jesus? How does my betrayal have anything to do with Jesus? How can Joseph's betrayal work towards any good? How can what's going on with me be anything that can turn into good? I'm here today to tell you that the betrayal of Joseph has everything to do with Jesus. And that an unexplainable amount of good comes from Joseph at the bottom of the well. And so let me explain. So, after Joseph was in that pit, he got brought out of the pit and he was sold into slavery. So instead of Reuben coming back and saving his brother, he got sold into slavery first. So To make a long story short, Joseph was in slavery, and then he rose and he got sent to Egypt, and that's important. And he rose to power in Egypt through some way. We'll go through that in the next couple weeks. But Joseph rose to power in Egypt. And along comes this famine. And Joseph invites his family to Egypt to escape this famine. Something that would have wiped them out. So the Israelites hang out for a while in Egypt, a couple hundred years. And then Moses, this guy, he leads them out of Egypt. And then they wander around in the desert for a while. And they finally make it back to the promised land. Finally make it back to where the Israelites are supposed to be. The Israelites want a king, so they get one. But he wasn't a good king, so they get a better one with David. This guy after God's own heart. Things were decent for a while, then they get exiled. Then the Israelites get back home, but things were never the way they used to be. Eventually Rome takes over Israel, and all seems hopeless. So that's kind of like probably the quickest way I've ever explained the Old Testament. There's a lot of stuff in there. But anyway, this is the point. At the moment, at the very end of the Old Testament, things seem absolutely hopeless. But then, Jesus comes, and all is restored. So do you see what happened there? Do you see what's going on? Like, God used the betrayal of Joseph as a quintessential event that led to the birth of Jesus. Think about it. If Joseph never was down in that well, was never betrayed by his brothers, he never would have went to Egypt. If he never went to Egypt, then he would never would have saved his family from this famine. They would have been wiped out. Boom. Gone. No Old Testament. So, because of Joseph being betrayed, everything in the Old Testament happened, and Jesus comes. And that is amazing. This horrible, horrible event, God chose to use it to bring Jesus. God chose to redeem Joseph's situation. Okay, and God did it for a lot of reasons. Okay, and God didn't necessarily need that. He still could have brought Jesus along without Joseph's betrayal. But he chose Joseph. He chose to use Joseph to bring about Jesus. Okay? And if God is willing to do that with Joseph, if he's willing to pull Joseph out of his well of betrayal and bring Jesus out of that, he's willing to do it in your life too. He's willing to bring you out of your well and make it something beautiful and redeem it. And does God need to do that? Does he need to redeem us? Does he need to make things better? No. But he does it anyway. He doesn't need to redeem us, but he chooses to. And that choice, that's a choice of love. He chooses to love us in the moments where we feel no love. He chooses to love us in our absolute worst moments. And he chooses to redeem us. And that's amazing. That's beautiful beyond comprehensible measure. And Dr. Rob Reimer, or Reamer, I'm not sure how you said it. Josh said it one way last week. I guess I'm going to use Reimer this week. But anyway, he speaks of God reaching down into our wells and pulling us out to redeem us in his book, Soul Care. I think the quote should be up here. And there it is. Anyway, God can redeem the pain of our lives to make us more like Jesus. As I look back on my life, I can say I've learned more from the failure than success. I've grown more in pain than in prosperity. There are few things that mature us as much as a trusting response to a redeeming God in a time of suffering. In Romans 8:28-29, Paul writes, "And we know that in all things God works for the good for those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. For those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son." God can take anything, even the most tragic and most painful things in our lives, to make us more like Jesus. This doesn't mean God ordained these evil things that happen in our life. And this is really important, okay? God didn't want this evil to happen. He didn't want you to suffer. He didn't want you to be betrayed, okay? God doesn't cause people or ordain people to suffer evil like rape, molestation, or physical abuse. But God is so good that he can redeem even these horrible things. So right now, I want you to know this. In this very moment, God is working in you, and he's working to bring the good, the beauty out of you being betrayed. He's choosing to take your hopeless situation, and he's choosing to fill it with hope and with love. He's choosing to take your darkness He's choosing to flood it with light. He's choosing to make you more like Jesus in the bottom of your well because he loves you. And he can do that because he is power and he is magnificent and he is glory and he is so wonderful that we don't deserve it at all, but he chooses to do that for us. So I guess now the question is, so yes, beauty can happen out of this betrayal. And something great can come from this. And I know there's people in this church right now that if you talk to them about this, they can tell you all kinds of stories about how something seemed completely hopeless and something that could never be made good again, something good came from that. And if you ask someone and you talk to people, you're going to see that. But right now, how do we help this? How do we deal with this betrayal? What do we do? How can we look and see the good works of God that He's working in us right now in these betrayals? And to do that, first we need to understand that this process is not simple, it's not quick, and it's not easy. But we need to know that it is worth it. A lot's going to go into it, and if you really want to dive deep into this process, you really want to learn more about this, I would encourage you to read that book, Soul Care, that I just quoted from, and then also you can take our Soul Care class that we're going to offer in, I think, a couple of weeks. But for now, I have 3 things that we can do that's going to help you in this process of being redeemed, this process of finding the good in your area of betrayal. And one of the first things to do is something that we should do all the time, but specifically in these areas of being betrayed, is we should pray. Prayer is one of the most powerful things we can do. It is literally a direct connection to the great Redeemer. So, and we need to not only pray for ourselves, by ourselves, but we also need to pray with others. I can't explain what prayer with a group of people has done in my life and how powerful that is and how life-changing that is. And I would encourage you to do that. And if you're in a place where you're kind of confused, you really don't know what to pray for, you really don't know what to do in your time of being betrayed, we can look to James 1:5, and it speaks directly to these type of situations. So James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. Now, we often use this verse to kind of to ask for wisdom. So when we don't know what to do, we ask for wisdom, and God gives it to us. And this verse does mean that, but contextually, this verse is speaking about hurt. It's speaking about trials. It's speaking about troubles and bad situations. A few verses above that, James 2, it says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds." So James, in this specific situation, is talking about trials. And he says, if you don't know what to do in these trials, you don't know what to think or where to move forward or how to move forward, ask God how to do that. Ask God to give you the wisdom in moving forward. Ask Him to tell you what to do. And when you do that, you'll get your answers. And you have to earnestly pray that. You have to trust that you're going to get the answers, even though those answers might not look like the way you want them to look. The second thing we can do is one of the most important things we can do. And again, all of these 3 things don't only apply to situations of betrayal. They can apply in every area of our life. But they're super, super helpful in these specific situations. So the second thing we do is to remember God's promises. At the bottom of that well, like I said, it's dirty, it's dark, and we hear a lot of lies. And we need to combat those lies. We need to attack those lies with truth. We need to remember what God says about us. We need to remember what He wants to do with our lives, what He promises to do with our lives. And I have a few for you to remember. So if you're writing stuff down, write these verses down. The first one is the verse where we talk about Romans 8, 27 through 30. Okay? And this verse is saying that the Holy Spirit is interceding on our behalf to make things good and to make us like Jesus. So in hopeless situations, this verse is saying there is hope. In situations that seem like they're never going to be good, this verse says that they can and they will be good. Another is 1 Samuel 12, 22. 1 Samuel 12, 22. And this verse says, "For the Lord will not forsake His people, for his great name's sake, because it has pleased the Lord to make you a people for himself. And what this is saying is God isn't going to leave us. He's not going to leave us at the bottom of our well. He's not going to forsake us. He won't leave us alone. And he's not going to do that because it brings joy to him to bring us close to him. So he's not going to leave us. He wants to be with us. Another is Isaiah 40, 28 through 31. Isaiah 40, 28 through 31. This is one of my favorite passages. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is an everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even you shall faint and be weary, and young man shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. This passage is saying that God is powerful. He will make us powerful. And he will renew us. Another one is Deuteronomy 31:6. Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them. For it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. This verse is saying that God is with us and will not leave us. He will never leave us. He will always, 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 always be with us. Even when we don't feel it, he is with us. And what we need to do with these verses, these truths, is we need to write them on our hearts. We need to remember them, especially when we are under attack. Because it's going to happen. You're going to hear those lies. But you need to remember the truth above all. Remember the truth. And these truths will overcome these lies every single time. The third thing I have for us when we're dealing with this betrayal is forgiveness. And this is the hard one. This is the one that we don't want to do. If I'm honest with you, the people that betray us, they don't deserve forgiveness. In my eyes, they don't. But I'm not in charge. And we need to show them grace. And we need to remember that the beauty of grace is that it makes life not fair. Meaning that grace needs to be in every situation, specifically because we were given grace, even when we didn't deserve it. And redemption can never fully happen until you forgive. And forgiveness can never fully happen until we do it with the power of Jesus. And these situations are the hardest situations we forgive because we hurt so deeply. And the only way we can forgive is through the power of Jesus. So in your prayers, pray that Jesus helps you forgive. Pray that Jesus works in this situation and brings about this forgiveness. And in forgiveness, it's really important to remember this. Okay? When we are forgiving someone, you're not condoning their actions. And I think that's why a lot of people get caught up in not forgiving, is they think that whenever you forgive someone, you're saying that it's okay. No. You're not telling the person you're forgiving that whatever happened to you is okay. That you're not doing that. What you're doing is you're releasing your betrayer and yourself of that betrayal. Okay? And Pastor Josh is going to speak more about this in a couple weeks, and he's really going to dive deep into this type of forgiveness at the end of Joseph's story. But beautiful situations can happen from ugly situations through forgiveness. One last thing that we need to remember at the bottom of our wells, and this is probably the most important thing to remember in this time of betrayal, is told to us in Hebrews chapter 4 and Isaiah 53. We're going to go to Hebrews chapter 4 first. We're reading Hebrews 4, 15 through 16, and then Isaiah 53, 4 through 5. Okay, Hebrews 4, 15 through 16. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our own weakness, but one who is in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. In Isaiah 53, 4 through 5. Surely he has bore our gifts and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him was stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace. And with his wounds, we are healed. We don't have a God that doesn't understand our situations. A God that doesn't understand what we're going through. We have a God that has gone through exactly what we're going through. We have a God that has taken our pain and he has healed us. And notice that's present. That's present tense. Okay? Okay? That's past tense. He has already healed us. Our pain has already been taken away. We have already been healed. And that's because we have Jesus. Jesus was betrayed just like Joseph was. He was betrayed just like we are. Jesus' closest friends, they sold him out. They denied knowing who he even was. They abandoned him when he needed them most. And because of their betrayal, he was nailed to the cross. You see, Joseph's story didn't end at the bottom of his well. And Jesus' story doesn't end at the cross. In that well where Joseph was, there was hope. And on the cross, there's hope. The only difference between those two stories is that Jesus could have left the cross. That's not what he did. You see, he could have chose to leave the cross, and he could have chose to leave those betrayals behind, the suffering, the hurt, but he bore that cross. He bore betrayed, alone, and suffering. He chose to deal with his betrayal, and he did that for a reason. He did that because he knew that in his suffering he would arise with redemption in his hands to save you specifically. Okay? We need to remember that. He did it specifically for you, for your situation. He took up our pain. He took our betrayals, our suffering. Jesus suffered in his well. He did that specifically so we can be pulled out of ours. So we be pulled out of beauty and redemption. And that is what it's all about. Jesus died for you. So in whatever situation you're dealing with right now, good can come from it. Whatever you're dealing with, there is hope. However dark it may feel, there is light. Because Jesus already took care of it. And I know some of us are really dealing with some stuff right now. And if you need prayer for that, if you want to talk about that, I'll be behind the counter there. And just come on back, we'll pray for you. You don't have to tell me everything. If you just want me to pray for you, I'm willing to do that. So as Avery comes up, let's just remember that in the bottom of those wells, there's hope. There's beauty. And that's because there's Jesus. Let's pray. Daddy God, I thank you for your message. I thank you for everything you've done for us. I thank you for your sacrifice. And I thank you more, Lord, for what that does in our lives. And right now, God, I know some of us are hurting. And we need you. So right now, Lord, I pray that we have this overwhelming sense of your presence, this overwhelming sense that you're right here with us,